Driving it home with Patti Vasquez, Patti Vasquez. From global conflicts to greenhouse gases, the folks refusing to wear masks says, and politicians getting caught grabbing ass says, she's driving it home with Patti Vasquez.
And we are broadcasting live from the Monaco Brewing Company tap room in Madison, Wisconsin. Thank you so much, everyone who's joining us here. Kirk Bangstad was generous enough to host us here. We're going to be coming every month to Wisconsin.
It's not usual. Usually it's
right.
A young man. Yeah, I mean, it's continuously, it's become normalized in America. And what I just keep on going back to is that it's, I guess kids dying is not enough to change this.
Right.
So if kids dying, and because it seems like a week ago a CEO died, and that rose seemingly a lot more. I mean, at least the news was constant about that. I got a feeling the news about Madison is going to last about 2 days, because everybody's so used to this. So it's to me, it's kids dying is not enough, but CEOs dying might change the national conversation. And I'm not advocating for that to happen. I'm just saying, what is it going to take what drastic event is it going to take to change our gun laws?
No, the only thing that happens when a CEO is gunned down is that security teams make a lot more money. That's what's going to happen. They'll hire more security. They'll get they'll change their travel plans. And look, there are people that want to arm teachers. They want to have guards at schools. We already have gun screening at schools. And look, I live in Chicago, where the gun detectors have been there for a long time, because we, of course, in Chicago have had gun violence for decades. I was telling this story the other day. When I was in high school, a basketball player in the 1980s was gunned down because of gang violence. And so I've known about, in Chicago, we think of it as, it's happening in that neighborhood, and the access, and that's a whole other level of corporate greed that I know we'll talk about some other time, because I'm having the honor of writing for Monaco Brewing Company's newsletter. And the thing is that we talk so much about gun violence in Chicago, and I've asked my friends who are right-wingers, I'm like, so are you just saying that black people are more violent? Is that really what's happening? Are they not able, or is it that we have decades of being choked off from social resources, and people create their own economy in the absence of being supported by their own government in their neighborhoods?
Yeah, I mean, so you're leading into exactly what I wrote about this morning, and what I wrote about this morning is that at some point, if we've been fighting for gun control for 20 years, Columbine, I think that was 20 years ago. We've been fighting for healthcare reform for 20 years. Hillary Clinton tried to do that when she was when Bill was president. We haven't gotten there, and so when you can't vote someone into office that's going to change something that's very obvious, and your vote no longer matters because it's not going to affect change, that's when some people do other things. And so I talked about the social contract. I was a poli-sci major in college, and every single political philosopher that we wrote about said, we agree to get into a social contract, which means we give up some of our own rights in order to get normalcy and be safe and to be protected by our government. We give up some of our individual rights, but we expect to not have a state of chaos, and we expect to be protected. And so for the last 20 years, government has not protected Americans from gun violence, and for the last 20 years, government has not protected Americans from going bankrupt if they get sick. So at some point, the social contract, people are going to realize that the social contract in America has been broken by our government towards us. The UK, Germany, France, the Netherlands, their social contract is still holding up. They still take care of their folks when they get sick, and they make sure that guns are kept in check. So at some point, when are we supposed to ask? If our social contract is broken, when does the average American decide that they no longer have to hold up their part of the bargain? And instead of voting, they find pitchforks, and cause violence.
Well, and so often you've seen people on the right who will say, "Oh, well, they'll use that quote from Thomas Jefferson that the tree of liberty has, there has to be bloodshed, all these things," and it's almost always from the right. It has taken a long time. Oh, my wonderful friends from Walworth! I was just talking about my friends from Walworth County. It's Ellen Holly, and remind me, Patty. Yes, excellent, Patty with a Y. Yes, it's the Dems, the chair emeritus from Walworth County, Ellen Holly. So what a wonderful surprise. I even brought my little Fibs for Wisconsin buttons too. Because I know people still want them, so I had a couple. I'll send them back with you guys. Oh, I'm so happy to see my friends. So yes,
let's just talk about the Walworth County Dems. Two ladies just showed up to your radio show who apparently you knocked doors with them. I'm guessing, right? That's how you know those guys.
Oh yeah, I knocked on. I don't know how many doors I personally. They knocked. We'll find out from Ellen a little bit. But do you have a total of how many doors you got? Because they had record-breaking weekends when we were there. They thousands of doors. I have to show you some video. I had a former state senator in our truck one day, and there was a moment where like some farms we were on like Bob's Road sometimes, like no pavement and just dirt gravel roads, and there was one that was like a junkyard and there's like piles of scrap all over the place, and Senator Kotowski's out of the car, and me and Rebecca were in the car, and you can hear me just start laughing. I'm like, what are we doing? I was like, do I go stand outside of the car so that people know that he's with somebody, that he's not dangerous? So I'm there. I'm not there for protection, but yes, we an amazing organization that I know that we'll talk about this a little bit later. How heartbreaking November 4th was. Was it November 4th or 5th? I don't know. 4. I don't know. It was earlier in November, but the incredible work in Wisconsin, I think, it's as hard as it was to see the rest of the country go so far right, to see Wisconsin really not just hold the line, but gain 10 legislative seats in the General Assembly, to win the seat for Tammy Baldwin. That is the work of so many organizations. I'm going to start crying because I really was so proud to work with them. They're fantastic. And you provided a lot of beverages. A lot of fans of Nope Seltzer, by the way. They're in Racine County, like Kelly was like, some folks are now addicted. I have to go I'm just going to make trips just to deliver Nope Seltzer, which is of course available on Minocqua Brewing Company's website, MinocquaBrewingCompany.com. Absolutely. And sign up for the newsletter. And I have to take a break here so I can go hug my friends real quick. But no, I think that but before we do that, I do want to go back to what you were saying about at what point it's not about, and we're not talking about us encouraging violence. We're talking about what happens individually to people who just can't take it anymore, who are like, I've had enough, is what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think so. That is true, and it's we at some point, if we can't see change happen, there is the potential for a breakdown of what we expect out of society, and so that's what worries me.
Yeah, I agree. We are at the Minocqua Brewing Company tap room in Madison, Wisconsin. We're so thrilled to see beautiful friends here, and we're doing a live broadcast with folks who we've met before, some we were just seeing for the first time here. So we'll be right back after this on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal. Thank you to Kirk Banks at the Minocqua Brewing Company for hosting us. More in a moment.
Tom Hartman.
Autocrats generally, particularly those autocrats who have narcissistic personality disorder and are sociopaths, as is, in my opinion, Trump, typically do not tolerate high-profile people around them. They want to be the star of the show, and that's certainly been the history of Donald Trump. The only people that he will tolerate around him are people who, when he says, kiss my ass, they fall to their knees.
The Tom Hartman radio program, weekdays 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. on WCPT 820, where facts matter.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez on WCPT 820.
Thank you so much for joining us as we broadcast live from the Monaco Brewing Company tap room in Madison, Wisconsin. Kirk Bangstad was generous enough to host us here. We're going to be coming every month to Wisconsin. I was talking earlier about my friends from Walworth County. We and a merry band of volunteers came to Wisconsin. Starting back, we did our first fundraiser in Kenosha back in December of 2023, helping candidates there launch their campaigns as they were still gathering support and trying to raise money. We came back starting in April, working on some of those races, including the Supreme Court race for Janet Protase. No, it was Janet Protase this past. I don't know when any of these things are happening. It's all a blur. But because Wisconsin has elections every other week, we've been coming we started coming every weekend since April and August. We were up for all their elections, and then I spent my last week I was in Lake. Where was it? Lake. Lake Como. I got a little bungalow in Lake Como, and I went door knocking with my friends. We worked in Janesville and Rockville, in Elkhorn, all over the area, and met some incredible people along the way. We had the pleasure of working with students in Whitewater, where apparently Governor J.B. Pritzker, when he visited Whitewater, was given a Fibs for Wisconsin button, and then asked, "What is a fib?" and did not know what it was. And these poor students were like embarrassed, trying to explain it to them. There's a great photo of them trying to explain what a fib is, and he wasn't sure if he should wear the button, because he's like, "Will I lose votes if I wear Fibs for Wisconsin button?" But we're so honored that you guys joined us today, and I look forward to catching up with you a little bit more. Kirk Bangstad meeting with some customers. I know we have some new folks that are joining us tonight. And how has it been? How has it been, Kirk, since the post? I know we were here right after the election, but how have things been going with the reaction online to your new newsletters getting more vibrant and a lot of different voices joining you, working with Goods Unite Us, all those things? Tell us.
So, when we lost the presidency, when Harris and Walz lost, it's been quite dead here. And it's to be expected. I mean, I think we represent. Look at our walls. We represent everything progressive in Wisconsin, and nobody really wanted to think about that because it was such a downer. So it's been pretty quiet around here, and everybody's been reflecting. And obviously, we're reflecting and we're trying to figure out what to do next. We're all, I kind of feel like it's like you're kind of stumbling around in the darkness, figuring out, what's your best move. And one of the things that I decided was that, the media, corporate media, really let us down. I mean, I think you probably talked about ABC News, just settling out of court with Donald Trump, and even though they had a winnable case because they didn't want to be penalized later, and I feel like that happened over and over and over and over again, and I also feel like social media became just a cesspool of right-wing things over the last few months, and so in my stumbling in the dark, after really trying to do, you and me and half the state worked our tails off to elect Harris. The next step, what are we going to do? Well, my next step is to recruit folks like you, recruit folks like Ben Cominos and Pat Kreitlow, and really wonderful writers who have a great handle on humanity and a great handle on what's happening, and are not afraid to speak the truth because you're not owned by corporate media, as to be our North Star. And so every day we're writing now a different writer. I write only one day a week generally, but every day there's a different writer who I trust, and I want to help fund those writers to have a place where Wisconsinites, or people outside of Wisconsin, but it's kind of more Midwest focused at the moment, that they can go to kind of help understand and digest the news that's not ABC, it's not the Washington Post, unfortunately, which used to be our North Star. And so I'm glad you're helping me in that endeavor, and I'm hoping that we can help fund all of these journalists through the sale of the products that we're selling, and I hope it's a copacetic kind of thing for you and for us, and that's exactly what happened this morning. When we got this information yesterday about the gun, about the shooting, immediately, we're a brewing company, we're not a newspaper, but I think I'm turning it into a little bit like a bit of a news analysis place. And I was like, I have to write about this because I don't want people to get both sidism of. I mean, it needs to be reported that gun violence is the cause of this, and the access to guns is why this keeps happening. And it's not. Yes, it's mental illness, but come on, And so even the Milwaukee Journal is not going to say that, And so they're not going to harp on it that way. And I think it's imperative that anybody who has a voice and can write and has an audience get out there right away and say, guns, 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 we have to do something.
Yeah, I think that, as I mentioned earlier, the brains of the extreme right always slam shut when there's any conversation at any time, but especially after gun violence. There's usually more gun sales after a shooting because they get all worried, especially if there are more Democrats in office. All of a sudden, there's a run on guns. Remember, Obama was going to take your guns away. And every time there was a Democrat in office, they always would run on. That didn't come up at all this time when it came to Kamala Harris, because she put it all out there. She's like, I have a gun in my house, and if you break in, you're going to get shot, right? She didn't say by my husband. She said, I'm going to shoot you. And even that, I think for a lot of Democrats, we're like, I get it. Let's not be too. It's like we definitely stake out the territory of. We start with, let's be reasonable. Can we have background checks? Can we have red flag laws enforced? Can we eliminate bump stocks? Can we not have rifles that will slaughter children in their classrooms? And then someone just texted in, because I mentioned that in a lot of red states, they want to arm teachers, they want to have armed guards, and yet in Uvalde, how many members of law enforcement were outside those doors and didn't want to go in because, am I yelling? Because they were afraid of those guns, right? Well, then don't, hey, if you're all back to blue, then don't put them in a situation where they might be gunned down and are afraid to enter those doors and save those kids' lives as they bleed out on the floor.
Yeah.
I'm angry.
We did a 10-week show on the Republican war against public education last year, and so the fact that any of these Republican lawmakers want to spend money to get metal detectors and bulletproof glass in public schools is absurd. The answer is guns, and get them off the streets and make them way harder to get, as opposed to the opposite, which is arm teachers and make your school Fort Knox. So it's always the opposite. It's always just, to me, completely not only tone deaf, but just the opposite. Like you're living in an upside down world, and that's what they plan to do. They're like.
Yeah.
Like they want to make it seem so outlandish that we're not all armed to the teeth, that people without critical thinking skills like, well, I guess that makes sense. I guess we all have to have 4 guns. And it's the lack of critical thinking, which is because we don't have fully funded public schools, that people are actually believe this hogwash.
Yes, because in the 50s and 60s, God forbid, white kids would go to school with black kids, and all of a sudden we start funding, the idea of school choice. And that comes back to what I was talking about, choking off opportunities from communities that then create an economy of their own, and then turn to states like Indiana or Iowa, where the gun sales laws, the straw man purchases, although the straw purchases, I don't know why I said straw man, the straw purchases are completely acceptable, and then we're flooded in Chicago. And even the president of Mexico said, where all the guns come from with our drug cartel? They come from the United States. Okay, let's take a break here before I start screaming again. We are at the Monaco Brewing Tap Room in Madison, Wisconsin. We're so grateful to our friends who are joining us here, including there's someone taking notes. I don't know if he's writing a piece on us, but we also have our friends from the Walworth County Dems. We'll be right back after this. We are taking calls. If you want to join us, 773-763-9278. We'll see if that works. We haven't tried that yet here in Monaco. More in Madison. More after this on WCPT 820, Heartland Signal.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
Patti Vasquez is taking your calls now at 773-763-9278. Driving it home with Patti Vasquez now on WCPT 820.
Thank you so much for joining us as we drive it home from the Monaco Brewing Company Tap Room in Madison, Wisconsin. In a few minutes, we're going to have Ellen Hawley join us, the chair emeritus from the Walworth County Dems. And I know we have a listener on the line who wanted to join us. We have Ellen. I'm going to take Bill for one more segment because I'm going to take Kirk for one more segment because we have a listener that has a question. I don't know if it's for both of us. So, Lady B, let's roll up Bill and see what his question is. And I think Kirk is going to have to listen on the monitor over there. Okay, Bill, what's on your mind, my friend, for being able to hear him?
Hi, Patty. Great listening to you. I love your passion. I wouldn't call it anger. I would call it reasonable indignation. And I refer to the GOP as the Republican Party because they have done a brilliant job of selling Eskimos a freezer. I want to kudos to Kurt for his comments, and I don't condone violence, but perhaps if a few more CEOs get shot, maybe the Republican Party will come to their senses. This is ridiculous what's going on. I had a loaded .308 aimed at me by an acquaintance. Well, he was more an acquaintance, but fortunately he never pulled the trigger. But
oh my God,
that person,
that's terrifying.
That person should never have had a firearm. He's mellowed out in his old age, but
wow.
The comments Kurt made about gun violence and national health care. Kudos to Kurt, and I love your program. I listen to Rich. I listen to I can't remember her name now, but it
Stephanie
was on
Miller,
tip of my tongue. Miller, right. And, of course, Tom Hartman and Joan and you, and I appreciate the progressive, liberal, common sense issues you guys come up with. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, Kirk. What do you want to say to it?
So, I'm riding the edge on this, and I hate, I always really got to make sure that I say it the right way, because I'm not for violence. But when it comes to these two issues, gun violence and healthcare system being broken, I think there will be so much frustration that society could be a breakdown in society, and if people start becoming violent because they're so desperate to get health insurance or to not go bankrupt, or they're bankrupted because of being sick, and if people become violent because they've given up that they're going to be protected, and they start becoming violent too, that could break down to some sort of a war. And I don't want to say that I'm for war, but I think that what Luigi Mangione did was he, in one assassination, and it was awful what he did, but he turned the conversation around. And so what's worse, having a potential civil war or a class war, which breaks down, where the police and the army are battling state by state, or what's worse, a couple other drastic things happen to those who are perpetuating the problems, and those would be the politicians who are in the back pockets of the billionaires and the billionaires themselves. So what your caller said was, nobody wants to say maybe if a couple more CEOs were off, that we fix that sounds awful. But what is it going to take? Obviously, it doesn't take the killing of children to change things. So what is it going to take?
Well, here's the thing about to that is, the response, for me it was really hard because I kind of tiptoed around the tragedy and the assassination, and because I'm a comedian, I'm surrounded by, in social media, hundreds of people who reacted with a lot of jokes and takes, and I was just like, oh, you know what, I'm going to take a break from this. What I did notice, obviously, were so many people sharing their heartbreaking stories of being in debt, losing their homes, losing their retirement because of an illness, people who were being denied procedures, people who had family members who died because they were denied certain kind of life-saving care. But we all knew that. We all knew that existed. We all knew, right? I mean, did people not know that over 14 million people are in debt because of medical costs? There are millions of people who perhaps have to work longer or have to move in a smaller place or give up their homes altogether. Those stories have been there. People have been sharing them. But I guess this amplification in the wake of the assassination is kind of what you're talking about, is that it galvanized people left and right, because I was so surprised to find out that Charlie Kirk had people getting mad at him. This is a wrong take, dude. That was mind blowing.
I mean, there's no doubt that there are plenty of folks who voted for Trump who are in the working class. I think we've established that potentially way more folks in the working class voted for Trump and without knowing that the exact thing that he wants to do is to make their lives worse. And so, the working class gets that health insurance is broken. The working class gets that school shootings are ridiculous. We shouldn't have them. They don't need to know. I wish they all knew, but they don't have to know that this doesn't happen in any other industrialized country. To know that it's ridiculous that this keeps on happening in America. They don't have to have that education per se. The fact that the right and the left in the working class are both completely galvanized when it comes to gun control and when it comes to the healthcare industry says that there's going to be more of a class conflict than there should be more of a class conflict than a right versus left conflict when it comes to almost everything right now.
I agree completely. I think that that was the quote. I believe Lyndon Johnson said that if you can convince poor white people that they are at least better than black people, then you can manipulate their emotions through rage, fear, and keep them in the conservative party. And I don't know if it's something like this, the healthcare crisis that we're in. And here's the thing: is that the idea that one of our texters messaged, millions know that Republicans stand for white supremacy and Democrats don't, and that that is their sole motivating factor. The sooner we get this, the sooner we will stop being perplexed. They see dead children as collateral damage in the context of guns, period. And then, Kirk, you're not ignoring the clouds on the horizon. That doesn't make you pro-hurricane.
Exactly. Well, I'm a little chagrined because I was a little clumsy the other day.
I did want to ask you about. May I ask you about this? Because I had some listeners message me. Hold on. I had some listeners message me and ask me to distance myself from you, to speak out against you. And I made a statement yesterday, which is I had a lot of friends who reacted similarly to you, and I work with them. I'm friends with them, and I'm not gonna. I might go, oh, okay, not my take, but I'm not gonna edit somebody. I'm not gonna, I think letting you work through that and the response you found out, right?
Well, so I lost my wife to stage 4 lung cancer. Every step of the way, when she was, full of chemo and not able to even get out of bed, she or I had to be fighting with our health insurance company every step of the way. Like, this was hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so, I do agree that the CEO of United Health was part and parcel of mass death in America because they denied claims. And unless you had, my wife was a firecracker, and she had a lot of fight in her. But there's so many people that don't, especially when they're sick. So the fact that there's so many people have died because of health insurance policies to make as much profit out as they can, gives me little sympathy. When one of those guys who was in charge of perpetuating that against most of working class America gets assassinated. Now, was it right? No. And the second thing is insurance. Holy cow. I lost a $750,000 defamation claim, and my insurance company provided my legal defense. And my legal defense wasn't very good because they didn't want to pay very much for the lawyer. And when we lost, they submitted a motion to not have to pay that $750,000. So I almost lost this company. I almost went bankrupt because my insurance company didn't hold down their part of the bargain. So twice in my life, I've almost been laid bare by insurance companies, for-profit insurance companies. So I get very emotional when I think about how the insurance industry is just screwed up and it hurts people. And so my initial reaction was to create a shirt that said, "In a world of corrupt CEOs, be a Luigi." What I meant by that was be the spark that changes the conversation. But obviously, you could read that to be the assassin that kills people. And so it was a little bit clumsy. It was a clumsy shirt. Since I've, and it was a knee-jerk reaction, and I've taken that shirt down. I don't sell that shirt anymore. And it's not necessarily because I was, castigated on social media, and a lot of folks who have been behind me from the start were like, "This is too far." It was because my thoughts on it grew, and I got more educated. I started reading quotes from Kennedy, and it says, John F. Kennedy said, if the people in power, or if you can't have revolution peacefully, then you're forced to have revolution with violence, or something to that effect. It's a paraphrase. That to me was a better quote than what I had before. So if you're going to make a slogan on a t-shirt, I'm all about slogans, I'm all about labeling. It wasn't the best one I've ever made, but I still defended it because it was the spark that needs to change the conversation. I still advocate for that spark. I don't advocate for people killing each other, but I advocate for the intent to do something drastic enough that actually makes change, and because votes aren't doing it right now, and that's the thing. I could have said it a little more eloquently than be Luigi.
And again, I think that a lot of folks, their reaction, as you mentioned, and I think you put it really well. My thinking grew, and we do operate from our emotions. A dear friend of mine, last summer when I went to go see her, actually last December, she was telling me that she had affordable care at the lowest possible entry point, and she was afraid to go to the doctor. She knew that she had something going on her tongue, and she was kind of worried about it, and she finally went in, and because she delayed, I don't know how much earlier she could have caught it, but she had tongue cancer, which they treated. She had extensive surgery, chemo, radiation, and by September it had spread to her entire body, and we just lost her a few weeks ago, and we're still trying to raise money to make sure that her husband isn't in extreme debt. And it's hard because had she not been too afraid of how much it was going to cost, she might have been able to extend her life, might have caught it earlier. And that's true for a lot of people. I mean, there are a lot of people who are like, you know what? I'm just going to, I'm fine. I'm sure it's nothing. And they put it, and we're going to have more of that under Trump if people like RFK Jr. and Dr. Oz accomplish what they are setting out to do, which is eliminate access for millions of us.
Yeah, it's the level of cruelty that exists in our private healthcare and private insurance system, even outside of healthcare, is astounding. And the lack of will that our government and our politicians have to safeguard Americans from that cruelty from insurance companies is enough to cause this pitchforky type behavior. And by the way, let me add, I think there's an age difference to how the perception of, and I don't want to go too far. We're talking about gun control today, and we're talking about, the rage against gun violence. But there is a difference in response and perception, I think, depending on age. That's what I saw, because I have a 90,000 person Facebook following, and Facebook tends to skew towards older Americans. The next largest social media following I have is on Threads, which is, Zuckerberg's attempt, to take the Twitter world universe, and that skews a lot younger. Now, the response to Mangione, to Luigi, among Facebook was complete disgust on my feed. Now, the response on Threads was the pitchforks were out.
Yeah.
My statements, which were a little over the top, I would admit now, were paled in comparison to what I was reading on Threads. Everyone was like, more. We want to see more CEOs gone, and it's that mentality, because I would suggest that, I'm 48 now, and a good part of my life, I believed in the system. Because the system worked. My family was middle class. I was able to get a good education. I was able to go to college. I wasn't in huge amounts of debt. So if you're my age or older, then the system worked for you. And so America upheld their end of the social contract. And so now if a guy like Luigi breaks that contract and says, I'm going to resort to violence because I don't believe in the system, the folks that have lived through a good America are like, that's terrible. You can't do that. But the younger folks who have never had an America that's lived up to their side of the bargain. You can't afford housing. You can't afford health insurance. Gun violence keeps on happening and happening and happening, and you see your politicians not doing anything about it for 2 decades. Like, they are the ones, and those are the ones on Threads, like, let's keep the pitchforks out, and like, God bless Luigi. It was crazy what was being said, because they've already lost faith that the American government, that there is a social contract that still exists where the American government will help.
Well, and the thing about, I guess with the pitchforks out and get more CEOs is that there will always be another CEO to replace those people, because we have a capitalistic system that rewards that sort of greed, right? That morbid greed that's really supported by things like Citizens United and people, and a lot of electeds, many in government who are taking all kinds of donations from corporations, including the healthcare and the pharmaceuticals and construction, all these different areas that continue to choke us off in the working class.
There will always be another greedy person. I agree with you there. But we've already seen that kids should be the last straw, right? Kids should be the last straw. When kids are shot, that should, like you said earlier, I think Sandy Hook was when most of us woke up to this. And I think I even read, Pat Kreitlow's another one of the writers that I know really well, writes for us. He said the Senate actually had a bill that they passed to all these common sense gun laws. And I think somehow, it just failed. Oh, no. They had 50 votes, but they didn't have 60. It was filibuster. Yeah. So it was another breakdown. It's a stupid... Filibuster means you have to have 60 votes to get anything done in America, which means you can't get anything done in America, which means this filibuster needs to be abolished, and it's just a technicality, but you had enough votes to get rid of, to pass all these gun safety measures. And how could you be a young person and see enough votes, but you still lose? We're taught as kids, whoever wins the football game by 1 point wins, and to just keep on seeing, the popular vote, Hillary won, but Trump still was the president.
Right.
It's like if you grow up and every time that you're taught the simple stuff, like winning means winning and losing means losing, and then you don't see it happen in real life, how are you supposed to have faith in that system?
Well, and to your a listener pointed out, while you might feel clumsy about your T-shirt with the idea in a world of CEOs be a Luigi, yet Republicans in Congress have no compunction about wearing AR-15s in the halls of our Capitol. I mean, as a pin, as a decorative pin, a weapon that's again ripped children in half in their classrooms in Uvalde. Yeah.
I mean, there's always a double standard, and God bless progressives for not letting anything go by with other progressives, because we should hold each other to a high standard. But when it comes to Trump making fun of a handicapped guy, it comes to Trump just saying the most horrible things about women, and not a single Republican condemns him for that. There is a huge double standard, and so I always say, we gotta have a little more grace for each other as progressives, because our actions speak louder than our words, especially if we're sometimes a little fiery and emotional and don't say everything exactly right.
Hey, hey, I've been publicly fired for not saying everything exactly right. We are hanging out at the Monaco Brewing Tap Room in Madison, Wisconsin. We have an incredible audience here. We're so thrilled to be joined by friends and neighbors here in Madison. And of course, Kirk Banks said, the fearless leader. We come on by if you're in the area. I know a lot of folks listen in Wisconsin. We have our friends from the Walworth County Dems, Patty and Ellen Holly are here. So come out and join with us in tipping one back. Maybe pick up a T-shirt or a hat, a beer koozie, all the kinds of things. More in a moment on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal.
This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
There's so much that goes on behind closed doors.
On WCPT 820.
We are continuing to broadcast live from the Monaco Brewing Tap Room in Madison, Wisconsin. And I know that we have a caller on the line. I want to make sure I get to his call because I think it's the only call I'll be able to take for the rest of the show. Jim is on the line. What's on your mind, my friend?
Hi, Patty. The chief of police up there, where you're at a couple of miles away, he's searching for the motive for this 50-year-old girl. Now, the Highland Park shooter, he's been captured. I don't know if they were saying a motive to him. My argument is there's a lot of people that murder people with no motive at all. They have no motive.
Sure.
But the preponderance of guns, where everybody can get their hands on a gun, and if they're not stable, example real quick. Samuel Beckett was stabbed in Paris. He was a playwright, Irish playwright. Stabbed in Paris at 3 o'clock in the morning. Right? Gets the last rites, not expecting to live. And he gets up and he looks at the paper, and the assailant is in the court that day. So he goes into the courtroom. He asks him, "Why'd you stab me?" And the guy just shrugged his shoulders. He didn't know. He didn't know why he stabbed. my point is, with these readiness of guns all over the place, who knows who's stable and who isn't stable? That's my point,
Well, and I guess your point, Jim, our caller from Chicago, was just saying that the police always want to know what the motive is, and there's always this speculation: were they bullied? Were they, angry at someone in the school? That kind of thing. And yet, what do they do with the information afterwards? What changes afterwards when it comes to mental health or intervention for school bullying? Nothing is ever put in place, and the unifying the element that's most common is, of course, the gun, right, Jim?
Right, exactly, Patty, exactly. And there's so many guns here that look at the president of Mexico. He said, "Don't you realize that our guns are killing Mexican citizens?" We just the money in guns is just too astronomical to get anything done with it. Except, I don't know what, Patty, insure the gun like a car? You couldn't run over somebody with a car without insurance. They could back you down. Should be similar with a gun. Anyway, Patty, I don't know, but it's just a tragic thing. Anyway, Patty, thank you, Patty.
I agree. Kirk, come sit back down. We have one more minute for this segment. I'll tell you that Jim from Chicago was saying they always want to know what the motive is. We have one more minute, and was she bullied? Always all the elements, and yet the one unifying element, nothing ever changes after a gun shooting. Nothing with mental health, nothing with intervention. It's the unifying element is the gun, right?
Yeah. Yeah, nothing ever changes. What we have to do is we have to reduce access to guns. We have to reduce access to guns by those who are mentally ill, which are red flag laws. We have to make it harder, the straw purchases, the NIC stuff that isn't being adhered to in all these different states. I mean, it's over and over and over again. Like, all the solutions are plain and clear. They've all been proposed a million times. You don't need professors to figure this out. It's already been figured out. You just need the will, the political will. To pass the laws.
I know that you're lining up guests right here on location. It's exciting that folks have been stopping by. Of course, we're going to talk to a few folks, including Katie. Am I going to talk to Katie Abitz? Am I saying your name? Abitz? I'm going to talk to Katie in a little bit. We're going to talk to Ellen Holly. We got some other folks lined up. Andrew's going to join us. So let's take a break here. We are again broadcasting live from the Minocqua Brewing Company Tap Room in Madison, Wisconsin. The seats are filling up. We're so glad that folks came out to join us. If you're in the area, please stop by. If you're not able to come by tonight, but you do want to stop by the Madison Minocqua Brewing Tap Room, where do folks find this wonderful location?
Oh, we're at 2927 East Washington Avenue, which is right on the main boulevard, kind of going to the Capitol. If you're coming from the north, which is where we started from in Minocqua. And so we're easy to find, 2927 East Washington.
Outstanding. We will be right back after this on WCPT 820, Heartland Signal.
You're listening to WCPT 820, because facts matter.
Driving it home with Patti Vasquez, Patti Vasquez. From global conflicts to greenhouse gases, the folks refusing to wear masks says, and politicians getting caught grabbing ass says, she's driving it home with Patti Vasquez.
Back broadcasting live from the Minocqua Brewing Company Tap Room in Madison, Wisconsin. Thank you so much, everyone who's joining us here. The taps are cold and the pizzas are hot. It's some good stuff over here, I'm telling you right now. And I'm so thrilled to welcome Ellen Holly, who is the chair emeritus of the Walworth County Dems. Thank you for driving up and surprising us.
Hello, my friend. How nice to see you, and thank you for all your help in Walworth County. We really appreciate it.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. Your buffet was unmatchable in all the counties that I work. I mean, like, seriously, like, there was some pulled pork situation, and there were all kinds of salads and cookies and brownies. I mean, like, it was.
You gotta feed your volunteers. You want to show up?
You did a great job. Tell us a little bit about. I mean, you and I were talking off the air, but I know that I think everyone's the fact that folks are here and want to be engaged is kind of an anomaly right now, because folks don't want to hear about it. They want to, I'll get to it when I get to it. I'm ready to go when it's happening, or not at all. Some people want to curl up in a ball. Some people want to leave the country. What kind of reaction are you hearing from your fellow Dems in Walworth County?
Well, actually, because we're feisty and old, we never really considered giving up. We had a couple days, it was like, damn. And then after that, it's like, okay, now what are we going to do? Now, I think a lot of that, what are we going to do, is you need to call Biden and tell him to do these things. I'm like, I lost the phone number. I'm so sorry. But so we're really focusing on our community and really focusing on mass deportation and working on food insecurity and affordable housing. So we're going to be really, and of course the elections in the spring, we're really looking at taking care of ourselves, taking care of our families, and taking care of our communities, because that's all we can do.
Are you getting folks who, because I think a lot of people were caught off guard and thought, like, whether they voted or didn't vote, they were like, oh, I didn't think that was going to happen. And we were trying to encourage folks to find those community organizations, not just doing the political work, but as you mentioned, doing the work of supporting neighbors. Where do you recommend folks find it? Like, if they live in Wisconsin or wherever they live, how do they make those connections now?
Well, I think you can do things like, check with your local county Democratic Party. We're probably a little bit above the curve as far as what we do for community service, which is all year round. But I think, talking to your local PTA, are there needs in a school, talking to your local health and human services, volunteering at a nursing home. I mean, there are lots of different things to do that doesn't require high skill level, just an interest and a passion to be with people. But I think those are good things to do. Social media, check it out.
Now, I just saw you follow me on Blue Sky. I'm not very active there yet, I'll be honest with you.
I just started, and I deleted my Twitter accounts, and we'll be getting rid of the Dem Twitter account. It is so hateful and so heinous and just so mean-spirited that when I checked the Dems account, and I was just like, oh my God, it's like PTSD. It's awful. I like Blue Sky.
I like Blue Sky too. I like following people. Now you've got to follow my friend Jess Piper, the Dirt Road Dem out of Missouri. She's spectacular. You guys remind me of each other. I think we need to make that happen. We need to go on tour in some rural parts of the country. And one of the things we talked about, one of the reasons it's so impactful to be here. It happens to be the day after a school shooting, just less than a mile away, or about a mile away from the Monaco Brewing Company tap room here in Madison. You were a teacher and a school counselor, I believe, for a long time.
I was, and I look at this whole school shooting, mass shootings, gun violence through two different lenses. One is from being a retired counselor, and when we would have these drills or we'd have these live actions, that I didn't have the luxury of a big classroom where I could hide kids in bookcases and stuff. It was only the desk, so whoever could fit under the desk was going to be hopefully okay. So that would be 3 6th graders, maybe 2 7th graders, 1 big 8th grade kid, or maybe 2 smaller girls, but there was never that place for me, and I never even thought of that until after the fact. So it just really stirs me up, thinking that I've got this split second to decide who possibly is going to live in my room in my office and who's not going to. And they're like, well, that's just part of your job. It shouldn't have been part of my it should not have been part of my job deciding.
I kind of winced when you said that, because I remember there being a legal case, and I can't remember if it was Wisconsin or Michigan, where a teacher was suing because of the injuries she sustained during a shooting, and they said it's basically the hazards of the job is to get shot. Like, we are legitimately saying that now.
Oh, truly. And when this started getting to be a big thing, Parkland, Columbine, kids would ask me, well, if we had a shooting, I said, I had no doubt that I was standing in front of the, and they're like, you do that? I'm like, without even hesitation, because those are the people who go into teaching. Yeah. But it should not have been part of my contract, or this is now my lack there contract. But I also look at this through the lens of a grandparent, and I have 2 grandkids, a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. The 6-year-old is in 1st grade. And I know they do the active shooting drills in St. Paul, Minnesota. I get that. I hate it, but I get that. But he had, as a 6-year-old, his first active shooter event. And his comment to me was, because I talked to his parents, I just said, so what was that like for you, trying to not be too scary? He just said, I was just wondering if I was ever going to get out of that little room. And I'm like, and I'm glad you did, honey. But what do you say?
Well, and because, we think about the imagination of a child that age, 6, 7 years old. And it does, what else are they supposed to know or think if they're being told to with their drills, go into a cloakroom, wait until you're given it's all safe? How do you ever feel safe at that age, right? And this has happened recently, so
it happened within the last 6 weeks.
Oh, my God. That's horrifying.
Spooky, and I just like this darling child and his classmates, and it's a great school district, and it shows yesterday's shooting that it doesn't make any difference if you're in a great school or not a great school or a good neighborhood or a bad neighborhood. It's everywhere, and I just hate that, and I wish our politicians would have the cojones to stand up and say enough is enough.
Yeah, and we saw that after the shooting at the Covenant School in Tennessee, where there were, because Democrats, do say, try to stand up and craft legislation, and yet they're either outnumbered or lack the sense of urgency. And we saw that the Tennessee 3, all of them who were basically they were removed from the floor, they were thrown out of office, got their seats. 2 of them, the 2 black electeds, were thrown out, and yet again the communities still voted for Blackburn, still voted for the status quo. For I guess this is the cost of sending our kids to school, is they might get shot. I don't even know.
No, I don't know. I don't know either. And I guess I am feeling a great deal of urgency about many, many, many things. And that's part of that's my personality.
Same.
You noticed. But I also know that I can't solve it by myself.
Right.
I can do what I can do, can be ready to go when they need me to go. But I'm just still really angry.
Yeah, I am. I'm extremely angry. Someone just said it was passion. That I shouldn't feel bad about my rage.
I'm extremely passionate.
You are.
I
think passionate rage is definitely the energy that we're all having. So what can we do in the weeks and months ahead of, because you have a big election coming up in April. The Supreme Court, once again, for Wisconsin is on the line.
It is, and it just seems we have an election like every month, it feels like, in Wisconsin. I know it's not that often, but we're taking these next couple of weeks off, giving people a break. The Supreme Court, State Department of Public Instruction Superintendent, both very important. I think the Supreme Court, though, is crucial because we are just seeing now having that majority. Mm-hmm. Once we got Janet Prosewitz's in, just seeing some of the good things that can happen, and it would be just so gut-wrenching to have that taken away, after just a little bit more than a year. So we'll work our butts off and have our good food, beer in the fridge, monopoly beer, always monopoly beer, and just get the job done. We did make some good strides in Walworth County. As a poll worker, I was horrified at the amount of young men that had never voted before coming with their, F5 shirts and this and that and decide, I'm here to vote. And I'm like, great. Thanks.
Oh, so you kind of saw some of it happening in real time.
Saw it happening in real time. Yeah. It was bad.
For that race, just before we go, I know that I believe the candidate for the Supreme Court spoke in Walworth County at one of the events.
I was not there, so I have not met her yet.
So her name is
Susan
Crawford, right?
And we'll be reaching out to her to not just visit us, but to make sure that how can we help her?
Right.
And so we spent a lot of time last night signing nomination papers, and we're ready to go. But boy, this is going to be a tough one. And I think the other side is a little tipsy with victory, and they're going to take a lot for granted. We've just got to knock that down.
I look forward to getting more tipsy out of loss, I guess. Before we go, where can folks learn more information about the Walworth County Dems?
Walworth County Democrats, based in Elkhorn, Wisconsin, www.walworthdems.com.
Outstanding. Thank you, my friend Ellen Holly, everybody. Right here at the Monaco Brewing Company Tap Room in Madison, Wisconsin. We'll be right back with Caddy Andrew. We're back with Andrew in just a moment on WC. I don't have any information. Oh, here it is. Andrew. Yes. In just a moment on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal. And hello to our friends listening on KTNF AM 950 Minneapolis, St. Paul. We're right back.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez on WCPT 820.
Thank you so much for joining us as we continue to broadcast live from the Monaco Brewing Company tap room here in Madison, Wisconsin, where Tony is serving up cold beers and hot pizzas. So good, by the way, the sausage pizza. Mwah, delicious. We have a wonderful crowd joining us. I know that folks are like looking around going, this isn't like, we're not like packed in here. It's the holiday season. It's also the day after a tragic shooting right here in Madison, Wisconsin, about a mile away from where we are. And I know the community is still struggling to understand what happened, as we can always do. Every community struggles in the aftermath of tragedies like that. And I'll never forget, I took my sons to go see Santa Claus the same Christmas, the same day that children were killed in their classrooms at Sandy Hook. And within weeks, my older son Griffin was doing active shooter drills in his classroom. And we are here today with folks from the community who want to talk about these kinds of tragedies and the violence. And joining me right now is Andrew, who wanted to say a few things and have a conversation with us. So thank you so much, Andrew. Tell us a little about yourself. Where are you from originally?
Thank you. Yes, my name is Andrew. I'm from northern Wisconsin originally, Bismarck County, up by where the American Birkebeiner happens.
I don't know, what's the American Birkebeiner?
The American Birkebeiner is the largest cross-country ski race in America. It runs from Cable, Wisconsin to Hayward, Wisconsin. It's basically a marathon with cross-country skiing, so that's kind of the claim to fame up there.
Okay, and what brings you to Madison, Wisconsin?
So I've lived in Madison about 10 years at this point. Came here for school, stayed after the work, and just really love the area. I also really love the community. I just love Wisconsin.
So tell, I have to roll myself up and down if you see me doing this, because I come in hot on the air, meaning loud. So I have to move this up and down. I sound a little bit softer to everybody in the room, so my apologies for that. But tell us about what brought you into it. Have you been following Monaco Brewing Company and the work that Kirk does?
So I've been a fan of Monaco Brewing Company for a few years now. I've been inspired by the work that Kirk has done for the state. I'd say that what initially brought me in here today was Kirk's post on Facebook about the social contract theory, which was actually very interesting. And for those that don't know, the social contract theory is it's a political philosophy theory about why we obey government. And I'd like to talk more about that if I could.
I would love that, because I know that you were writing some things down. You wanted to share your thoughts, so please do.
Yeah, great. So I guess I'd like to expand on the thought of our social contract here in America. The United States really has had no problem selectively applying the social contract to certain privileged groups over the centuries that it's been a country. However, it feels like over the past few decades, this group of people that actually benefits from the social contract gets smaller and smaller. And for those that don't necessarily know what the social contract is, it's a very old political philosophy theory where that was brought up by people like Plato, Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, and it basically states that in order to submit yourself to government, you need to receive something in exchange from the government, and that relationship needs to make sense in order for political order to be restored at a state level. So let's review our political contract here with the American government. So for most Americans, we're asked to adapt to tragedy outside of our control. We have this interesting American math problem wherein you have to find a job that you can earn enough money to afford things like monthly expenses, buying a home, a large emergency fund in case anything bad happens, because no one will bail you out if it does, insurance policies that shouldn't be privatized in the first place, And this American math problem that we have, it gets a little bit more incalculable every year. And let's not forget that getting and keeping the job that gives you enough money to do all of these things isn't even something within your control, which is something that we've seen over initially in the NAFTA period of Bill Clinton, where everything was being offshore to Mexico. But now, more recently, in 2022 and 2023, a white-collar recession where tech workers, finance workers are getting laid off for artificial intelligence tools, which has really brought us to the current point in our history, where we have this American math problem that we all have to solve. And we also have things like, on top of that, you and your loved ones, your children, everyone that you care about could be gunned down at any moment by some deranged individual that really shouldn't have a gun in the first place. So what I'd like to pose is a question, which is who is looking out for this? Who is ensuring that we have some semblance of order to be able to live without fear of being gunned down in the street, but also that we have a future that we can work towards, where we can live comfortably as people within the United States. So wouldn't that be the basis of what we elect politicians to do, is to look out for, to look out and ensure this social contract is in place for everyone, and that everyone has an ability to participate in society and to see a future for themselves within reason? My next thought is that, I think over the past week with the shooting and also the Luigi Mangione event that happened, I think I'm most upset with the Democrats, because really they should know better. They should be the ones that are ensuring this social contract, because they're the adults in the room. And to see liberal media sources like the New York Times, the Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, and the new leaders of our Democratic Party that everybody has told us will ensure our futures, all take the side of the rich and the powerful and support exploitative insurance policies, it really just shows you that you're basically just not that important to them. Their priorities clearly lie with their corporate funders, and the alignment of the DNC with corporate interests is truly tragic. And as someone that has donated 3 weeks of my time to the DNC campaigning for Kamala Harris in the lead up to the election that they lost, I feel like I can finally feel the pain of the Trump voter. I can relate to the levels of frustration that you feel that would compel you to vote for destructive change. So my question to the DNC is, if you can't ensure the social contract, if you can't make the American dream accessible, if you don't pay attention to the population when we say the prices are too high, or that school shootings are unacceptable, or that denying health care to people is wrong, then why should we support you? And the one thing that stood out to me in the news from this week's tragedy the most is probably that the principal of the school praised the students for, quote, a job well done. When the alarm bell rang, so the interpretation of this is that when the alarm bell rang, when the shooter was deemed active, everyone got to their stations and they executed the plan that they had been drilling upon for the past who knows how many years. They executed this plan efficiently, and they responded to the active shooter's situation as they should have. And this was celebrated by the principal, and it was posted about in CNN, in the CNN newsfeed. So, I mean, I really think that we should just let that all sink in. This is something that we have practiced regularly at every school. This is something that we have accepted as a part of our society. And the reason we have accepted it is because we're just left to pick up the pieces as a result of political inaction. So the question really is, how is this a part of our society? Our politicians have truly failed us, and the Democrats have had power over the past 24 years. So how can we say that it's the fault of the Republicans when we've been in control of the legislature, of the executive branch, of the presidency for half of the past 24 years? I really just don't have much more to say.
Yeah. Andrew. Thank you so much, Andrew. That was there's so many things. Do you listen to Ben Cominos? He's out of Appleton, Wisconsin. I know younger folks don't listen to the radio as much. You just spoke to tens of thousands of people, by the way, listening in their car. You didn't know that?
That was mainly just you guys.
No, you're on the air in Illinois, in Wisconsin. We have folks that listen as far as Seattle and San Diego, and I think that we haven't, because young folks don't listen to the radio, I don't get the opportunity to talk to young folks like you and Katie in just a moment as well. I want to thank you for that, and I have a son who is 21 years old who is pulling me farther and farther to the left, who has been frustrated with me, basically the way I've operated. I ran for office in 2020 to be a state rep with somebody who she definitely is like, I do what the Democratic Party tells me to do in Illinois, but he has his hair on fire like you do. I was always operating from we got to work with the system that we have, and I might have fallen into that these folks are contributing to my campaign, and it really does come down to taking money from powerful organizations, from wealthy people, and then you continue to answer to them, and we need to break ourselves. Democrats need to start really shedding that. Otherwise, we aren't going to. That's a big element of that, is continuing to answering to those big, powerful people and not the working class. And I was just reading as you were talking, it reminded me, one of the things when I ran was I quoted our preamble of the state constitution of Illinois, which has a lot of what you're talking about, that the entire establishment of our state government was in order to provide for the health, safety, and welfare of the people, right? That's it. That is the social contract that you and you, Andrew, and Kirk are talking about. So I want to thank you for sharing that with our audience, for not knowing that was going out to folks all over the country. That was like a little podcast we were recording. No, this is a live, because now will you listen to the live terrestrial radio for conversation? Because there aren't a lot of us out there, and we need to hear from you. So please tune in and call us and continue to share thoughts like this. And wherever it is, are you active on social media? Do you want people to follow you, or is there anything we can do to support? Well, to at least, or will you come join us with organizations that Ellen Hawley? I heard her saying he's not wrong, and here's somebody who's working with the Democratic Party. Like, you're speaking to you're not wrong. So I hope that felt good. Because we're proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't really have any social media.
Okay, good. I don't need to either. To join us again?
I'd be happy to give you my time in whatever way.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Andrew. Once again for Andrew. Thank you so much, Andrew. We're going to take a break here. We're going to come back with another guest from the audience to talk about these important issues. Katie Abbott is going to join us after the break on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal and KTNF AM 950 Minneapolis, St. Paul. Thank you.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez on WCPT 820.
Thank you so much for joining us as we continue to broadcast live from the Minocqua Brewing Company tap room here in Madison, Wisconsin, where Tony is serving out cold beer and hot pizza. And we are joined now by a member of the community whose family combined has a teaching experience in this community for over 60 years. Katie Abbott joins us. Thank you so much, Katie. Bring that microphone on up. There we go.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And then again, Kirk opened up the tap room today as a space for people to come and share their thoughts. And I know a lot of people aren't ready, or it's not not their kind of thing. And I know people are listening at home and appreciating folks like you and Andrew coming on and wanting to share that. What inspired you? What had you been following Kirk Bangstad's journey and his call for? No, you don't have to say that you weren't or you were. Either way.
My introduction to Minocqua Brewing was my cousin, who's also was a middle school science teacher in addition to me. She invited me to beer church, and I really enjoyed coming to beer church. And the same cousin had sent me an invitation or a notification that this was happening this evening, and I figured, why not?
And where is she?
My cousin lives in Waterloo, Wisconsin. Yeah, but taught in Madison for many years. Yeah.
And so when you saw that Kirk was having an event where he wanted the community to come out and share their thoughts, because we are less than 2 miles from the school, was it so you wanted to be around other people who were like-minded, it seems?
Yeah, I had a conversation with the same cousin on the phone last night, and I had shared the sentiment that I'm very tired of advocating for the systemic respect for teachers, the interpersonal, like in my day-to-day life with the people I talk to at work, or I don't know, anyone I meet. And she was like, well, here's a platform that maybe you could share your thoughts. And I wrote a little piece in reflection to try and process the grief of what happened yesterday. And having been a middle school teacher and having had experiences where guns were in the building of the school that I taught at, not necessarily, fired, but still a threat, and wanted to share my thoughts.
No, it's fantastic. I think and I think that a lot of folks have that. They don't always know where to put those emotions. And I know that you wrote something online. And are you online quite a bit with young folks and seeing what their reaction has been, both to this and gun violence in the past? Because you have grown up in I don't want to ask how old you are, but I'm imagining that you had active school drills active shooter drills.
Yeah. I'm 25. And I did grow up with active shooter drills. I think what is hard to communicate or for people to grasp who even have children who are in schools, like, people really don't know what is expected of public educators and the reality that they face. And the fact that as a teacher, you have to sit with yourself and make the decision about what are you going to do in an event that this will happen, because it's not just an if anymore, like it will at some point, just when. And having to be okay with, I'm going to put myself in front of a shooter. I'm going to teach my children who are 12 how to break windows and console them. And on top of, having to sacrifice everything, your time, your identity, your literal physical money, the amount of money you put into your classroom and into your children. You just don't, it's hard to explain how that makes anyone feel and how hard it is to continue to see this happening.
Oh, no, I agree. And it really takes its toll emotionally and spiritually, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And how is your family dealing with this, having so many educators in your family, again, having to deal with this?
I think, unfortunately, we're at a point of being numb to it. It's such a common thing that happens. I think the fact that it's in Madison maybe brings up emotions differently, at least for me, than it has in the past, because everyone, thinks that it doesn't apply to them until they're there, or until it does. But unfortunately, it's just kind of a numb, yep, that's just what it is these days. And my mom and my grandmother are retired, and so I think there's a sense of relief of oh my gosh, I don't know. I'm so grateful that I am not dealing with that anymore, and I can't imagine what it would be like to still be a public educator right now.
And that's what's so hard. And again, you said that there's this sort of knee jerk of oh, we're so grateful for our teachers, and yet underfunding schools and not having any regard for the labor unions who are fighting for the rights of teachers and now the protections. The idea that we want to arm teachers across the country, isn't that the most asinine thing?
I certainly couldn't imagine ever owning a gun or being asked to use it when I think there's a great comedian who's also a teacher, and she's like, I can't even afford to buy pencils, and yet you're issuing me a Glock. And it's a little silly.
Yeah, it's sort of logic that eats itself at some point. And what are some of the things that you want people? I know that you wrote a poem, but you want people to be mindful because there is sort of this race, and on the Democrat side too, to sort of have these arguments. But our argument is that we want to, the argument on the other side tends to be, don't take away our guns. We have a right to our guns, and yet we don't have a right to be safe. We don't have a right to be free from gun violence. Like, that seems to be illogical too, doesn't it?
Yeah, people are so deeply sad and afraid, and all people are. And people deal with that trauma in so many different ways, and one of them, right, is a response of, we need guns to feel the sense of protection, and rightfully so, because they're being used to very literally kill and harm people that should never have to experience that. And is it the answer to, respond in the same way? I don't know. I think more gun reform would be obviously helpful, getting rid of the access for everyone and not just a specific group of people. But, I don't know. It's sad. It's all really sad. And people need support and help and to feel seen and to be loved and to have a strong sense of belonging.
Would you like to read the poem that you wrote that you post? We'd love to hear that.
Great. Thank you. Okay. So a little bit of context. I was a geology teacher. I taught 7th grade geology, and it was the greatest thing in the entire world, let me tell you. And hopefully I can communicate that through them.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? I love geology. Playing with rocks?
Yeah.
All about it.
So the context, yesterday I was sitting in a coffee shop and doing remote work for my new job. And so I write, a former colleague of mine came into the coffee shop that I used to teach with, and she told me that they aren't using the rocks anymore. How do you explain the grief? Young people, students, aren't using the rocks. They aren't having competitions to see who can hold the heaviest ones, trying to steal the ones that sparkle to make a quick buck, making Minecraft references every time you hold the obsidian up to the light shining in from the old schoolhouse windows. They aren't searching for them because they don't know to expect them. No staring in wonder, no silly names or costumes or sunglasses. The new rock, his name is Jerry, and he has this whole life story. No stories being told about them for them. And I no longer have a desk that continuously grows smaller as my students pile their backyard treasures onto it. And I never had the heart to tell them that they were all just chunks of concrete. And for those of you who don't understand the appeal of middle school, I once taught a lesson on why rocks could be considered our elders to 12-year-olds. And with my Instagram limit just ran out and I'm interrupted. With no prior prompting, just having begun the lesson, one student answered, well, Teacher Katie, rocks have been around for way longer than humans have. They go through change just like us, and they can teach us how to handle it. They tell a story, and it's good to listen to it. There's very little wonder and joy in education right now. I could rant about science being only done on computer screens, that kids aren't going outside, about the lack of music and art, that while I do not regret my choice to leave teaching, I carry with me the grief of being forced to part ways with something that I literally was born to do. But children are literally being shot and killed. There's no metaphor I could add emotionally or spiritually to the sentence, but it is so unbearably physical. And now I can't even be there to at least dust off the rocks, sitting patiently in the closet and share my joy. I just have to watch now and be notified that they are no longer using the rocks.
Oh, Katie, that's really beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry that it's the young people that have come out today that have really are paving the way for. I mean, like showing us that being thoughtful and being productive that way. This seems like it also helps you process this, and so many emotions again through your family, through the kids that you know, and by the way, we did get the laughter of the concrete.
I can't tell you, like, I would have kids just come in and be like, Teacher Katie, I found this rock and I think it's sedimentary or it's igneous. And it's so awesome. And it's a black top. It was rare. Sometimes they actually had it, but I like, how do you replace that, you know? Like, how do you, all of those things come up when a colleague tells me, like, they're not using the rocks or a school shooting happened. Like, it's like, that is what school should be, that magic. And it's really sad that we're in a place where that's not happening as much or literally at all.
Yeah. Do you want more folks to follow you on your Instagram? I was just about to look you up on Instagram. I don't know if you want us to. You don't have to tell us. I'll just do it personally.
I don't mind. It feels a little...
self-promotional?
Yeah.
Well, no, and I mean, I think that people like me and Ellen Holly, like, we're trying to expand our communication and understanding of folks. So if you don't want to share publicly, but Ellen Holly and I will have to follow you on Instagram.
My name, I'm Katie Abbott's. My name is spelled C-A-T-Y, so if you just look that up, I'm sure you'll find it. I have an account that's called Teacher Katie, and I share lessons and videos about geology and rocks. I started it because my students couldn't follow my personal Instagram.
You're not the only one right there. It's just that one? Okay.
Katie,
there you go. I'm going to do it right there. Thank you.
My students couldn't follow my personal Instagram, so I made one because I wanted to share my love for all the cool rock things that I see. And that's it.
Well, we're going to be coming back every month, and I hope that I see you and Andrew and more folks in the community come out and join us, and Jared, join us on the air and continue to grow these conversations. Because I know that Kirk struck a nerve with another listener, so we'll talk about that when we come back. It was so funny because I knew it right when you said it. I was like, "Don't say but, say and." He said about this. So I don't know if you had. Do you have any thoughts about the CEO that was? I mean, say, you don't have to share those if you don't want to.
I think they're very separate things.
Right?
And
you don't want to combine this.
Combining them just because, like, there's a family, right? There are multiple families right now who are, like, literally bawling their eyes out and not, like, their lives have forever changed because their child was killed.
And didn't come home that day.
Yeah, and I think that's a very different
conversation and,
like, deserves a different, I don't know, space and level of respect versus the reaction of Luigi in the situation. They're so different.
They are. I know they are. And then there's the violence by gun violence. And I think because I operate in the space, I'm on a board for ending gun violence, and it is right to conflate it isn't appropriate. So I appreciate that perspective. Thank you so much again, Katie.
Thank you so much.
Katie Abbott's. Thank you so much, Katie Abbott's. We're going to be right back after this on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal and round it out with Kirk. Maybe I'll let you read his text. Maybe you won't. More in a moment on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal and KTNF AM 950 Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Because facts matter. You're listening to WCPT 820.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez on WCPT 820.
We are wrapping up here at the Monaco Brewing Company tap room in Madison, Wisconsin. Tony keeping everyone fed and happy, and the libations have been fantastic. Is beer a libation, or is it just a...
I think you can call that a libation.
Libation? We're tipping one back.
We all get a little liberated when we consume the nectar of Bacchus.
Wasn't it wonderful to have two young members of your community come out tonight?
This was great. It's exactly, these folks who just talked, who spoke, were speaking from the heart, and both of them made me cry in different ways. Andrew, I shed a tear because he was working through his own emotions with the social contract, just like I did this morning. And his take was was while raw and which was absolutely fine. His take was very similar to mine, and so I'm really happy that he came out and he said his piece. And then Katie, man, she made me cry because it's like I experienced magic when I was in public school.
Yeah.
And I was in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, and it's a small little place, and it made me wonder about everything. And the fact that wonder might be gone, and she said it in such an eloquent way, really hit me home. It hit deeply. So I'm really happy you guys showed up. I appreciate it. This is exactly the depth that these two young adults brought, and these two older but still young Democratic chairmen brought. Is exactly what we need to talk about, and exactly what I'm trying to foster in Wisconsin and through my crazy beer drinking network of progressives that I have.
Well, what are the? I know that you have expanded your publication for the Monaco Brewing Company newsletter. You're bringing on new writers, sharing different perspectives. You and I talked last month about Goods Unite Us. I texted you that I went to Walgreens and bought 2 bottles of wine that were by companies that donated more to Democrats and not. But again, I don't like. I'm doing my best to at least not do the worst possible, which is supporting companies that are all in with Trump and with suppressing democracy.
I mean, there's so little that we can do to try to make a difference. So I'm trying to direct my efforts towards making a difference and still surviving because I sell products. And the things that I am imagining that we can do as Democrats is to just, stop contributing to any company that gives any money to any lobbyist that keeps guns available to the general public or to the mentally ill. And I want to stop contributing to any part of society or any company that perpetuates a broken healthcare system. And so, and I want to stop contributing to any advertising efforts that perpetuate corporate media that bends the knee to Donald Trump and doesn't hold him accountable, which is happening over and over and over again. So, to me, yes, I want to not unify and not divide, but I want to unify progressives and Democrats and anybody who cares about the truth and who has a heart and who has empathy. And I want to bring companies together that believe in that and have an ecosystem where everybody buys products from companies that believe in the same things that I believe in. So I'm trying to find companies right now to work with, and I'm working with Brian Potts, who is the founder of Goods Unite Us, to help identify those companies, and we're in conversations to expand. I just sell booze, but there's a lot of other companies out there. I just talked to this lesbian couple who owned a Montana book company in Helena, Montana.
Can we go? Can we do a road trip? No, I have a friend who lives in Helena. It's fantastic. Yes, please.
Those guys were like the first to publish the banned book list. So they're sort of specifically trying to sell the books that have been banned in Florida and everything. And so they're interested in somehow getting together and working together to promote all of us who are unapologetically liberal.
Yeah.
And so that we can encourage people to spend money with companies that are not contributing to the fascism that's currently happening to America.
And what's the name of the book company again?
A Montana Book Company in Helena.
That's great.
I know, they're great. So but that's part and parcel, and I also want a part of whatever we make, selling our beer or selling books or even like selling toilet paper. I have an idea about toilet paper, by the way. Keep buying toilet paper. And I want a part of that to go to fund folks like you and other, progressive personalities and smart, progressive folks who write, and I want to kind of create sort of an ecosystem where people who buy products, some of that money goes to truth, to folks who write about the truth. And so I'm trying to kind of do this whole circle thing, and that's what I'm worried about in the next couple months.
And where do folks sign up for your newsletter to make sure they're up to date on all this great work?
On my website, you can sign up. Just put your email address on the MonocleBrewingCompany.com website, and you will be signed up to our MailChimp email list. And I'm using my MailChimp list, and I'm using Substack, and I'm trying to convert everybody
to Substack,
Facebook, from Twitter. We don't even have a Twitter account. I've been kicked out of Twitter 2 years ago. But Facebook, Instagram, I don't trust them anymore.
You mean Zuckerberg building a $300 million bunker in Hawaii?
$1 to the Trump inauguration. I don't trust them anymore, even though I rely on them. So I'm trying to switch everybody over to my Substack and our email list so that we can directly communicate with you directly, and I can leave social media forever. But right now, unfortunately, I can't do that entirely.
Well, thank you for all your great work. Thank you, everybody here at the Monocle Brewing Company Tap Room. Thank you to everybody back at the station. Lady B, thank you so much. We'll be giving away our 2 gift cards tomorrow for Kathy Griffin and Fry the Coop, because I didn't have my live reads. Randy Rhodes is up next, followed by Matt McNeil. Bye, everybody.